So I actually had sort of an agenda here, and I think I shared it with most of the panelists here as well. But I think keep it a little free flowing, right? Just to make it more contextual to the audience here. I know that there is a mix of academic as well as practitioners, and I think what I came out with was a little more fundamental in nature. So we'll keep it free flowing, but I'll try to structure it as best as I can. We could probably start with quick introductions. I think most of us here are having a very diverse coming from very diverse backgrounds, industry-wise as well as stakeholders, right? We have, like, I run an early stage startup. There are folks here who are in the enterprise space and well-established companies as well, and corporate. So I think everyone can just give a sort of a quick intro, and then we can make it more contextual for everyone. Yeah. So.
Sure. Can you hear me? Hi. So I'm Avi. I'm currently the VP of Data Sciences and AI at Mobi here in Bangalore. Background-wise, I was actually an economist by training, a research economist. So I used to work in building statistical models to predict actually character traits in children in the field of education economics. I then spent several years actually in mobile app development, building out a startup in London. And then I was involved in the world of strategy consulting with McKinsey across London, the Middle East, and Asia, and increasingly India. For me, in the last 3 years, this world of analytics in industry and business really took off. And it started with the notion of advanced analytics in the field of applied across sectors. So I worked in leading ML transformations in sectors like automotive in India, manufacturing, and banking and financial services. And then 8 months ago, I joined Mobi. I joined Mobi to lead the team in Bangalore, really because I was looking for companies in India that had a tremendous amount of big data and had real potential to build truly AI systems, which also requires having the engineering capability to put them into production. So that's my agenda at the Mobi.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon here, a nice afternoon in Bangalore. My name is Sandeep Chanda. I head technology for global services at IISc. IISc is a digital company. We are 16 years old. We have about 16 offices in the US and 4 offices in India. My role primarily, I'm heading the digital transformation initiative at IISc. We are also the Microsoft Partner of the Year in North America, and for data and analytics, we are the global partner of the year for Microsoft. And I'm looking forward to all the conversations and questions from everybody here. I think we are at a very interesting juncture where we'll see a lot of collaboration between academia and the industry at large. And those are exciting times. Being here at IISc at the pinnacle of research in India, I think that presents us great opportunities to collaborate, solve challenges together. Right? So looking forward to that journey.
Hello everyone, this is Amit Singh. I work in Cognizant. I currently work by engineering for Cognizant's flagship data and AI platform called Decisions. I've been with Cognizant for 15 years now, out of college. That's my first company, I'm still there. And it has been an interesting journey. I started with data warehousing and BI, moved to big data, real-time data analytics, and now into AI. And academics-wise, I have a postgraduate diploma in IT from IIITB, and I'm currently pursuing a PhD in data sciences from IIITB. And both in corporate as well. Looking forward to have a good discussion.
Great, awesome. So very briefly, I'm Dhaval. I run a startup called Smarthome, and actually enable consumers to find the right technology for their homes. Adopting a smart home, according to me, is a very, very difficult process. It's a very fragmented industry, and we are sort of trying to, I would hate to use the word, but trying to disrupt it. We are fairly early stage. My background is completely in digital advertising and consumer behavior. I have managed to launch some big brands in India as well, and my last stint was with Leo Burnett. Before that, I ran my own agency for the longest time, and this is my third venture. hopefully third one's a charm. And yeah, I'm here to bring probably a different perspective about AI and tech, because I think we talk a lot about it, but I think we should start talking about implementation and use cases and what it means for the end consumer as well. So hopefully I'll bring some insights from that perspective here, amongst all of the unions over here. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Praful. I currently wear two hats. I have a startup which looks at the intersection of blockchain and machine learning. And on the weekends, I teach machine learning. We launch a blockchain course in currently teaching machine learning. Prior to this, I was at Hewlett Packard for about 10 years. First in the research labs and then in the analytics data labs. And prior to that, I spent 6-7 years in excellence students in the embedded systems unit.
Okay, awesome. So good panel here. I think as far as questions are concerned, feel free to bring in your questions, but don't interrupt us if there's a longer discussion going on, because we'll be able to add more value in that sense. But yeah, if there is a section that gets over, you guys want to jump in and have questions, then please feel free to go ahead. I think one of the first most important things which I would like to talk about is, I was having a quick discussion with Sandeep before this, just to get to know his perspectives about AI, IoT, deep learning, and all of this, right? One of the things he mentioned was that it's inevitable, and I would love for him to maybe elaborate a little more on that, and how the David versus Goliath, and how that's going to change the way internet democratized technology and democratized information for everyone. How AI and IoT can do that for people across the world.
Yeah, from my perspective, what we are seeing is digital transformation will happen, and if we go by the market dynamics, our assumption is that by 2020, 50% of IT investments will go towards digital transformation. You might also ask what truly essentially means for a company to be digital, right? Our understanding is that a digital company is one where you are able to break down departmental silos, more collaborative, more connected, and are able to focus towards innovation. And we firmly believe that AI will bring in new digital frontiers. And one of the key drivers for some of these technologies is going to be cloud. And the reason I say that is because not a lot of these technologies are new, right? AI, as you know, started with the Turing test back in the 1950s, and it had its share of ups and downs. But it existed for a while. Most recently, though, a lot of these technologies required huge amount of compute power and large investments. So it was not, you need to have real deep pockets to be able to invest in some of these technologies and be able to leverage their capabilities. What I truly believe is that cloud is going to be a force multiplier. At the same time, it's going to be a great equalizer, right? It will bring opportunities at a price point for industries that are operating at different levels of scale.
It will sort of level the playing field, right?
Bring in a level playing field, right? So an industry that is new, a company that is new or a startup would be able to leverage some of these technologies and be at the same level playing field with a competing company in the same industry, which is much larger, right? It will bring in these equalizing capabilities and be a force multiplier for everybody, right? It will make it more accessible for common people. It will make it more accessible for everyone else.
So, just on that point, right? I think I would love to hear Abhi's thoughts on this, right? I'm sure InMobi is doing really. I think it's probably one of those largest ad networks right now in Southeast Asia, and I just want to know your thoughts on this, right? Like what he touched upon, leveling the playing field, using data. Somewhere you as an agency and you as a network are also sort of overlapping and now competing with people from different domains, right? Not necessarily ad networks themselves, because now you hold that huge amount of data sets. So I just want to know what are your thoughts on this, and what do you think about this? David versus Goliath, leveling the playing field, and what's the context with what you guys are doing probably?
Sure. So I think in our context, the David versus Goliath analogy is most relevant in terms of going head-to-head with the Facebooks and Googles of the world. I shouldn't say that plural, literally, it's Facebook and Google, right? Because the level of market share that they have means that the type of data that they're collecting, the diversity of data, is at a scale that it's very hard for any other ad network to really compete with. It is a struggle for all of us, in all honesty. But where there's opportunity is, and I think this is what you're hinting at, is we do have incredible amount of data. So if you put aside Facebook and Google, we are among the top 10 globally ad networks, not just Southeast Asia or South Asia, but globally. In fact, our presence is strongest in the US and in China, which is 2/3 of our market globally. So we are collecting an incredible amount of data. And just one statistic to bring it to life is that every month we are seeing 1.5, latest figure is actually 1.64 billion user devices on our network. So 1.64 individuals are hitting our network every month, and we're learning about them, majority of whom are actually in China and the US. Huge data set, right? And we learn a tremendous amount. There are multiple features associated with each individual user. We don't see it as competition when we talk about other sectors. Actually, we're increasingly looking for partnership opportunities with telecoms players, banking and financial services, other consumer tech players. Opportunities which we've all started hearing about, increasingly players trying to help merge, join data sets, and to the benefit of both parties. So that's an area that we increasingly looking towards, and we're already seeing, we've had early experiments in terms of if you join our data with telecoms data, the kind of insights you get, we're seeing promise early on, but we're early in that journey, and that's the direction it's heading.
Interesting. So you know, it's interesting because we were talking about cloud and we are now talking about data, right? And the next section which I'll come to is going to be probably about privacy and other things as well. But does anyone have any thoughts on what are the other pillars that will essentially make AI, IoT, help open up more digital frontiers? I know personally I do think that one of the key drivers would be adoption by consumers as well, right? At what level are we going to start using AI and IoT? We as consumers are interacting with the ads that we serve in some cases, and most of the media companies out there, which are driven by AI, right? And but when we start using the Internet of Things at home, when we start using more of these, I would say, connected devices, we'll start seeing more of this data that will probably be put to good use or bad use, but it'll be put to use and it's going to be inevitable. And what are new opportunities that's going to open up? And I think that's pretty interesting. So of course, there's a lot happening. There's not a lot happening at a end consumer level because we sort of take benchmarks from what's happening in the industry and enterprise side and B2B cases. So maybe you could touch upon a little bit about what Cognizant has been doing in that space as well, maybe at an enterprise level.
Yeah, so in Cognizant, most of our customers and what we see who are moving towards AI and IoT, they are mainly in the manufacturing and logistics space. Right? So that's where we see the maximum shift towards digital and then onto machine learning AI.
But it must be expensive, right?
It is expensive, but as Sandeep mentioned,
right.
Cloud is making it cheaper
right.
and more accessible to companies to invest in those kind of technologies. And you spoke about the other pillars which are driving AI, and open source is one of the biggest pillars of them. Right? So
right.
earlier you had to buy a very expensive software apart from the hardware that was required.
Right.
But then cloud and open source technologies are making it possible. And a lot of interest in the areas of, for example, to take a case study from one of the customers that we recently did was, it's an energy and utility company in the US. And they send out drones to take photographs of their power lines. And they have insulators installed on top of them. And these drones go out and they take images for maintenance purposes. So they go and see whether some insulators are damaged or broken in any way. Right? So a lot of photographs are taken, thousands and thousands of them. And human beings start looking at them and to find out whether they are broken, they should be sent for maintenance or whatever. And the question was, can we build a model, AI model, and can AI really detect a damage automatically and and reduce the manual effort that was required, and in turn save a lot of money.
So it's essentially, so here's the thing, right? Here's what I get. Every time I read a case study about enterprise, it's all about cost efficiencies.
Most of them.
Most of them, right?
Yes.
And when it comes to looking at the larger context, so I'm just trying to, lead this conversation onto Praful here, right? And ask him that, okay, cost efficiencies, at what cost do enterprises do that, right? And then the question of privacy comes in, and therefore blockchain and how blockchain is going to help us build a more decent.
Another area that is happening is in AI is sometimes it is also opening new avenues for enterprises.
Okay.
Once they look at the AI capabilities, they come up with use cases they have not yet thought of. They have the data lying in the enterprise somewhere, right? For example, there is an automobile manufacturer from Japan. They collect a lot of data while driving their cars, but they didn't know what to do with it. And they saw some demos on how, just like Mr. Ramlingam showed on an autonomous car. And then they started building use cases, and then they came to us for implementations of those use cases. So it is also opening up new avenues of businesses, and what more can be done within the enterprise.
Right.
That's where we see it. So one is cost efficiency,
Correct.
and second is newer areas where data can be used.
Correct. Yeah. So sort of, if you were to summarize, of course, there's the cloud, right? And then there's
Cloud
there's data, and what else would you say is
And one aspect that when people talk of AI, we tend to ignore the knowledge part of it, right? So, and that's why Google and Facebook, right? They lead in this space because they have all the data, and plus they're mining that data to build knowledge graphs.
You mean end consumer data?
And consumer data. So
Consumer behavior.
and you had a point on how consumers are helping in AI.
Right.
We are contributing by giving our data to these models and making them better.
Correct.
For example, the speech recognition software.
Right.
They were there in 90s also, but they were not able to understand Indian English at all.
Right.
Today, they understand all the various accents, most of them, correctly. And how do they do that? Because we keep talking to them, we keep improving those models that Google and others are building. Right? So that's how we are contributing. We keep posting our photos, and that's how they are able to understand and build these models better. Right? So that's how we are contributing. And mining data and building those knowledge graphs is one of the most critical aspects.
Right.
Mr. Ramlingam and the gentleman after him, they spoke about how we collect the data and then use it, right? So I think those are the main aspects.
Sure. So one more, again, going back to that conversation about David versus Goliath, right? Personally, I believe that the internet, right, brought in information symmetry, right? It became easy for consumers to take a call about things because information was available, it was democratized. And in the same way, there's a huge wave that's impending, right? And as most of you in the room would already know, it's the blockchain, right? And that's going to revolutionize the way we transact and the way we do things, and that has huge implications on our lives. Of course, I'm not, we are far from it, but I think that's one of the things that will essentially level the playing field. So I would love your thoughts, Praful, on this.
Sure. So let me take a step back before I talk about blockchains and try to put this the way I'm actually looking at it. We talked about infrastructure, like clouds. We talked about NVIDIA bringing infrastructure, and that is almost available on demand. So I don't think infrastructure is going to be differentiated going forward since it's available to anyone. We talked about data, and I think data is going to be a big differentiator. And people who own the data are going to have a huge edge. So that's going to be second. The other two things we did not talk about, well, we briefly did. One is talent. Right? Do we have people who can use this infrastructure and then to derive insights from? That's where we're sitting in IISc, and hopefully people who are growing their capabilities should look for a positive future. I think that capability is going to become much more important. The last is tools. Right now, when we talk about tools, one way to think about tools is low-level tools like the programming language, so on and so forth. But the way I like to think about tools is probably at a higher level of abstraction. And if you look at deep learning, one of the big advantages of deep learning is that once you have trained the model on a particular set of images, some of the layers of the network can be reused in another context. Because you are using something about the real world images which can be generalized to many more images. Can we start sharing those tools? Can we start trading those tools? Can I send a tool that I have built to you? Can I send a pre-trained model that I have built to you? In Mobi, we started talking about this, the idea that you are partnering with other people to share data. I think what blockchains can bring, and that's something that we are looking at, is basically an economic layer where data and pre-trained models can be traded with each other. Because I think that's the missing part. I don't think infrastructure is going to be the missing part. I think capability is going to be the missing part of the problem. And the one way to solve that problem, of course, is to increase the capability of people who are picking up the speed. And I think there's going to be sufficient shortage, as far as I can see. The number of demand is going to be much, much larger than the supply. And therefore, one approach that might happen is that if you have trained a model, can I use your model and pay you for the model that you train? If you have some data, can I train the data? Of course, you still haven't answered the fundamental question, which is who owns the data. Right? So if I post my profile on LinkedIn, whose data is it? Is it my data or is it LinkedIn's data? So today LinkedIn monetizes that data. Of course, I get some value out of it. And whether that is justified or not is an ethical moral question that probably the question is to.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly, that's exactly the next section that I wanted to head into. But I'm just curious to know, any insights in on how this will change, with technologies like blockchain. I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Right. So the way you should think about blockchains is basically at a very fundamental layer. A blockchain is nothing but a secure, trusted, auditable ledger. That's what we call blockchain 1.0. And that's why you see a lot of banks and finance companies moving towards blockchains, is because it enables secure sharing of data between banks. But if you go one level up, and what we are calling blockchain 2.0 in this industry, it's basically the idea of a distributed, trusted state machine. And at the very abstract level, once you have a distributed, trusted, auditable state machine, you can think of it as models which can run with an underlying economic layer support. So the connection that we see between AI, ML, and blockchain is that just like humans trade with each other, you will be having algorithms and AI agents both learning from each other as well as trading with each other to make sure that economics works.
Yeah, very interesting. No, here's the thing, right? So I don't want to just completely digress into a different topic altogether, but when you, just a very brief history of Bitcoin, you still don't know who invented it, right?
Right, that's fine. I mean, I don't think, yes, there is some mysticism, but I think we need to move on from that. If we
need to move on from Bitcoin.
Yes, absolutely.
I completely agree.
Absolutely.
What I mean to say is that that's the only big use case of blockchain right now, which is...
That's not true.
Okay.
Bitcoin is the first big use case, absolutely. But if you look at the Indian banking system, it's interesting that we don't give enough credit to our own institutions.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, but if you look at 2015, even in 2015, there is a position paper from IISc, which is the research wing of RBI, which has a strong position paper saying that the banks in India should move to a blockchain-based backbone to make sure that we are handling things like financial terrorism, making sure that black money is not happening. So they have been talking about this for some time, and I know for a fact that there are at least half a dozen private sector banks who are already looking at this technology. And we are now starting to think about how to combine machine learning with this technology.
So I see it as an opportunity, like a billion people, right? And we could probably be the forerunners in that as a nation.